Nick, thank you for stopping out to the Ohio State Reformatory. We're going to have Logan tagging along with us. He's a tour guide in training, fairly new, so he's a docent right now, right? Learning the ropes.
Yeah, figuring it out.
He's going to be following along. He's not here to intimidate you guys, just here to kind of keep us together. A pretty good sized group, right? We're going to be running into some different areas, might get lost, mixed up with some other tours. He's just going to help that, right? Also, he's got some pretty good tidbits as well. So for those of you that like to hang out in the back and you're a little shy with the questions, Logan's your man, right? Also, we have been asked if this building has been built just for Shawshank Redemption. Yes, the architects back in 1886 when they were shooting the movie in 94. So, with that being said, any question? It's not a dumb question. I'm sure someone here is thinking it or has thought it. Right? So with that being said, let those questions fly, right? If you guys are just staring back at me, I don't know if I'm doing a good job or not, right? So, any question at all, let him go. Right?
Your name is
Nick. Yep.
Nick.
Yep.
Okay.
I've been here since about July, so coming up on a year. Now, they don't really like us talking about the paranormal on this tour during the daytime. So for those of you that are interested in the paranormal, I have had one encounter, if you will. I'm going to point out that spot. We're going to pass by it where it happened to me on the tour. I'm going to kind of walk really fast, you'll notice. But at the end of the tour, I'll share that with you. If you don't want to hear it, you're more than welcome to leave if that's not your thing. But with that being said, we're just going to dive right in. You guys on the 12 o'clock tour as well?
Yes. Do you have 4 more receivers, Nick?
We might need 4 more. Thank you.
Yeah, 4 more.
I think so.
That would be interesting.
Awesome. Well, you guys are probably wondering when this place was built, huh? Back in 1886. Or, I should say, back in 1860s, right? What were we in the middle of? We were in the middle of the war. The Civil War, to be exact, right? Well, this land we are standing on was known as Camp Mordecai Bartlett. About 5,000 Union soldiers training on these grounds, right? As far as the eye can see, the surrounding farmland as well. Built-in barracks, water supply, shooting ranges, all that good stuff. We had a well supply so large, in case the town of Mansfield were to have a blackout or something like that, it could actually supply the town of Mansfield for 2 days with water, right? So that camp, it's a pretty good size, right? Well, good thing, right? The war ended. States left with this land with kind of nothing to do, right? Coincidentally, at the end of the 1800s, we're looking at a little bit of prison reform, if you will, right? Right now, in the late 1800s, we've only got 2 options if you break the law. You've either got your boys' industrial school down in Lancaster, Ohio. For boys up until about the age of 12, 13, that's kind of pushing it. Think of it as military school almost, running away from home, not listening to mom and dad. They're going to send you there, down to Lancaster, right? Now, say you're any older than that, you're getting shipped off to the maximum penitentiary in Columbus, with the worst of the worst, right? Your murderers, arsonists, rapists, pedophiles, etc., right? This isn't Disneyland, folks, we're in a prison, we're not going to sugarcoat things. So, for example, I'm a 15-year-old boy out in the town of Mansfield, right? I'm following behind you, for example. I see a few dollars sticking out of her pocket. I decide I would need that a little bit more, right? So I decide to steal it. An officer's watching the whole time. I get arrested. Well, again, I'm 15. I'm a little too old to go to that boys' industrial school down in Lancaster, right? So, for me stealing, say, $3 from her, $2 from her, I'm going to be sent down to that maximum penitentiary in Columbus, Ohio, where I get down there and say, I'm roomed with this gentleman right here. He's got 3 murders under his belt, and he just set a building on fire. So, you're an arsonist now, right? I'm his new cellmate. After my little petty time with this hardened criminal, am I going to come out a better person?
Nope.
Nobody has any faith in me at all, really? Well, most likely no, right? If anything, I'm going to come out with tips and tricks on how not to get caught next time, right? This old man, he's going to teach me the ways of the craft. If I'm going to be a criminal, this is how you do it, right? And that's what the state was seeing time and time again. These boys were coming out smarter criminals. Thus the need for that intermediate prison, how we have today, right? Or back then, how we would have called it, the Reformatory. Now the Reformatory originally was a 4-step approach. Step number 1 being religion. Didn't really care what it was you were worshiping here at the Reformatory, as long as it still gave you that little kind of guiding compass. Think of the golden rule, 10 commandments, that good stuff, right? Right up here is an example. The Ohio State Reformatory, that's us. Looks like you can almost hear a pin drop, right? The boys are pretty uniform. We'll be walking through the chapel a little later as well. Gives you a little bit representation, right? Pre-game. Now the ones that say Ohio Penitentiary, that is the ones down in Columbus, examples of. Yeah. But that being said, staff. All staff lived here on site up until about the 1960s when that was phased out. Kind of deemed unhealthy to live on site of a maximum security prison. Tend to agree, right? But for that part, your chaplain, pastor, his wife and kids, they were living on site here, along with the warden, his wife and kids, right? So along the tour, we'll be passing through their living spaces, and I'll be reminding you guys, right? Again, different times. We've got people here that were born and raised in a prison. Not very many people can say that, right? Well, that being said, that chaplain as well, say you were Jewish, whatever, he was going to help bring in a rabbi, whatever. In later years, we would have built a full-fledged Protestant chapel out in our yard. We would have switched our chapel to strictly Catholicism. Apparently that was a hotter thing in the 60s around Richland County. Excuse me. But that being said again, that chaplain, he was also on your parole board team. So definitely wanted him in your corner, right? Now step number 2 to that reform program, education. These boys you were getting in here had about a 2nd grade education level on average. Spell their names, count a few hogs, that's about it, right? All kids for the most part. Your average stay here at the Reformatory is 18 months. We're going to get you from that 2nd grade education level to an 8th grade education level. Sounds like a lot to do, right? Well, in our heyday, we had a success rate of 85%, leaving us with a recidivism rate of 15%. Has anybody heard of the term recidivism before? It's essentially the rate in which a prisoner returns back into the prison system given a 5-year period. So 15 out of 100 men were returning to us in a 5-year period. That's awesome. In the state of Ohio today, it's in the 40 percentile. If you look out in California, last time I checked it was 78%. 70 out of 100 men, they're back in prison in 5 years. So what we were doing here as a reformatory, the numbers spoke for themselves, right? Now that being said, that reform program, it was deemed optional or illegal around the 60s era as well. Shaking my head too, right? Couldn't force men to go to school, church, and work, had to become optional. So when you make things optional, you might as well throw it out the window. That's when you started seeing men, instead of spending 8 hours in their cells as intended, 23 hours a day, right? If they don't have to go to work or school, why would you? Just let me know when getting time is, right? Well, step number 3 to that reform program. Have we all seen Shawshank Redemption?
Yes.
Do I have to kick anybody off the board? You guys want to get past if you're a little younger? Hopefully, though, if you haven't seen it, I'm going to be spoiling a movie that's around 30 years old, right? So that's okay with you guys. That being said, we remember the very beginning. Shows that beautiful flyover scene, right? All our outbuildings. Remember Andy and all them on the roof on that one scene? That wasn't CGI or a different location. That was all shot back there where those blue top buildings are. The medium security prison. Fun fact, that's not the prison that replaced us. The prison more towards the left, that one is. There are 2 prison systems back there. Yeah. Again, along the tour, I'll be reminding you guys. But that being said, we were almost 100% self-sufficient in our heyday. The only thing we were importing was salt and pepper, right? Everything back there from a power plant, shoe factory, mattress factory, cigar shop even, locksmithing in a jail. Yeah. You know, those guys were taking their homework back to their cells. Had to cut that one out real quick. But that being said, you're going to come here, get that education, get that work skill, hopefully find God along the way, right? And then that fourth and final step to that reform program is yard time. I mentioned our average age range here. Our boy is about 14, 15 years old. Youngest on record is 12. But 29 or 30, you're pushing it, right? So essentially what we had here was big boys. Going back to that chaplain and those organized sports he put on, such as boxing, race car teams, baseball teams, we had it, right? All that plays a part in communication with teammates, listening to COs or coaches, helps you build communication skills, right? All that plays a part in what you want to do. Do we have any questions about that program? I know I went over it a little fast there. Well, this building, as I mentioned, we struck ground 1886. 10 short years, 1896, we opened our doors. We had this front little administration half open that you saw, right? That beautiful castle-like structure. One with our west cell block over here. It's where we brought in our first 150 inmates. Actually by train track behind us. Fun fact, that train track is still active today. Pretty cool. And when they arrived, they were greeted with a welcome to Mansfield party. They were getting chocolate bars, harmonicas, cigars, cigarettes thrown at them. Welcome to Mansfield, boys, right? Even had a military band playing one. You guys are giving me weird looks. Again, put yourselves in the shoes of a Mansfielder in the late 1800s. This is a small farm town. You just injected $1 million prison into our small economy and a ton of stable jobs, right? Of course, this town's going to be excited. Well, that party was short-lived for our townspeople. Those prisoners strolled through the doors. I'm sure the guards ripped them of their gadgets, took them home to their kids instead, right? They were handed shovels instead. They were responsible for finishing these sewers here, along with the 25-foot wall that encompassed our yard, about a quarter-mile long. So that party, it was short-lived. Any questions about those original boys?
Where did they come from?
So our original boys originally came from the Ohio Penitentiary down in Columbus. We sort of cherry-picked ones that we deemed low-tier offenders that would sort of fit in with the reform boys we were soon to get in. So as we go along the tour, you're going to notice a poster. It shows the 150 boys that we had, their location, even their crime, and the years they served. So going along the tour, I'll point that out. Sound good? But before we head out to our first stop, folks, we are at the Corrections Museum for the entire state of Ohio. Hopefully you guys had some time to check this area out. Back there, you've got some shanks and shivs, right? Barber's chair. Come in here with your family, get a haircut from an inmate, 25 cents with a straight razor. We've got a worker here by the name of Big Joe. You remember he's coming in here with his dad, right? That went perfectly well until the one time it didn't, of course, right? Yeah. Back over here, we've got Warden's furniture over the year, our architect's desk, right? And then back over there, that electric chair. That's the real deal. I'd like to reiterate, no executions were done here on site of the Reformatory. If you were set to be executed, you were going to be transported to the death house down in Columbus. That's where that chair sat. We did hold death row for a short amount of time, but we simply just have that chair because we are the Corrections Museum for the entire state, right? Again, that chair is responsible for 315 deaths, 3 of those being women. That chair was finally laid to rest in 1963. Not that long ago, right? So again, we don't add it to the tour, but if you want to pop your head in there, more than welcome to. Follow me, friends. Now, as we are heading up this staircase, our architect, Mr. Schofield, he was given a budget of about $715,000. Today's money being about $45 million. That being said, these green staircases were coming. Yes, the top's wood, the base, those are solid pieces of steel straight out of the maple. Those are your original fire escapes. Originally, he believed fire escapes on the outside of buildings were idiots. I guess in 1886, that passed by. You guys would like to follow me back to this room? This area should look highly familiar to you from Shawshank, so it's this area too.
Shawshank.
You'll see some of the after effects. Come one, come all, we can all fit in here, don't worry. As we're entering in here, it should look highly familiar to you, right?
Yeah.
Wait till everyone gets gathered in here. But as you're passing through, you're passing by that desk where Andy kicked his feet up, right? Walk that door, crank that record player up. Remember, Hadley has to break that door. That scene actually took 7 takes to shoot. Take after take, Frank Darabont, the director of Shawshank, he insisted that glass didn't break right. I don't know how glass breaks wrong, but it did. Apparently on that 7th, the final take, it broke perfect. Now, I was told they only had 7 panes of glass. Yeah. I like to imagine he said screw it, and they just went with the last take. I think we're all in here now. Well, welcome to Warden Norton's office, right? Remember that last pivotal scene where the warden, he's looking out on the boulevard here, right? Sees Officer Hadley back there, getting arrested in handcuffs, right? He's bawling his eyes out. Andy's already split. He knows his deuce is cooked next, right? So what's he decide to do? He opens up this drawer right here, pulls out that revolver, starts to load it up, right? Well, first time we're watching that movie. Pretty intense scene, right? We don't know whether he's gonna shoot his way out, turn the gun on himself, or what, right? Well, first little trivia question for you guys. Shawshank Prison. Where was that supposed to take place? Where does Stephen King base all of his novels? Maine. Yep. Now, behind this lady right here are doorknobs. If you take a look, can anyone shout out what that is on the doorknob? If you're from Ohio, it should look highly familiar to you. They are original to the building. It's got the state seal of Ohio. It was on all our doorknobs originally, right? Unfortunately, we sat empty before, a few years before Shawshank rolled into town. A couple of them got stolen, actually a lot of them. Well, that being said, as they're bum rushing the warden, they do a close-up shot of that doorknob. Doesn't make sense for a Maine state prison to have doorknobs from Ohio, right? So we don't know if that's something that Frank Darabont overlooked, or it was kind of a silent nod towards the Reformatory. Either way, us tour guys noticed it. We get to poke fun at it every day, right? Well, back to that last pivotal scene with the warden. Bob Gunton, the actor who played the warden. It was his first time kind of playing a role like this, and he wasn't very familiar with firearms. So, for lack of better terms, he didn't know how to properly act out killing yourself, right? He didn't know how to act out that recoil. Well, also, he had a stipulation. To get into kind of the right mindset, he wanted a picture of his wife on the desk, right? Now, this isn't his wife. It'd be a little creepy if we still had a photo of his wife today. But Frank Darabont okayed it, right? So during this scene, if you pay attention, that is his actual wife on the desk there. Pretty cool, right? Little secret. So that helped him get into the role. He would have pulled that trigger. He got so into the role, he actually knocked himself out of the back of the chair here, hit the back of his head on the ledge right there. Almost knocked himself completely unconscious. He's laying there half dazed, right? Seeing stars. Frank Darabont finally yells cut, runs over to him all excited, says, "Wow, that was amazing. We're gonna have to do it one more time though." The chair fell on the way of the shot on the way down. So you can see right there just how big of a stickler he was, right? This was his baby, as I mentioned, his first major motion picture. If that were me, I'd want to nail everything too, right? Well, as we look around this room, Hollywood does like to take back their props and artifacts, so a lot of these things are things we've gathered from Salvation Army, donations, trying to recreate the area. But there is one real prop remaining in the room. The safe. Now, after the movie, that was taken back by the safe collector it belonged to. It was simply just donated for the movie. Well, during these tours, we just had to talk about a hole in the wall, right? Kind of awkward. Well, one day we receive a call back from that safe collector. He wants to donate it back under one stipulation. He wants it to go back to where it was during the movie. We said perfect. We still got the hole in the wall. Slid that bad boy in there. Had it open for a while, right? Or we had the ledger and Bible. Wasn't even the real ones, right? Just ones we had found wherever. People kept stealing them, thinking it was the real ones. Hopefully they read them and learned a lesson, right? With that being said, you can see today we had to close it, and now it sits behind plexiglass. So, kleptomaniacs ruin everything, right? Now that being said, before we head out, right? We are a historical site. Everything you see here is pretty original to the building. Those tiles, for instance, we've been walking over. They're original to 1896. Actually caught a lady making out with a backpack full of them one day. That's how you catch a felony real quick. If you have the urge to take something from here, got a museum store right over there on your exit. Load up over there instead of bailing yourself out of jail. Way smarter of an idea, right? Now that being said, the next level we're about to go up, it's a little unrestored. We're going to be seeing lead-based paint, asbestos, stuff like that, right? Or it's a little bad for your health. Let's not be touching the walls, peeling at the paint chips, anything like that. Literally was on a tour about a month ago. Had a gentleman into his 60s take a paint chip off the wall, turn to the entire group and say potato chip and eat it.
Ew.
That's how you get kicked off the tour real quick, right? And that's highly awkward for me. I don't know how to handle that, right? Apparently, that older generation, they love killing their brain cells. I don't get it. What's it with you guys and lead-based paint?